Do not park under a bridge. All that's going to do is really channel the winds. What some people call an amateur chaser. It is not worth putting yourself in that much of a dangerous level. Something that videos very rarely show. You being there in person, stuff flying everywhere. You have 100-mile-an-hour plus winds, throwing pea-sized hail, it will become a projectile. My name is Brady Obanon. I'm a local storm chaser here in Belton, Texas, and I pretty much just chase tornadoes and severe storms, and help keep people safe, and just keep people out of harm's way.
How did you first get into the storms?
So I've always been kind of just interested in storms since I was I'd say probably since I was pretty little. I used to actually go to sleep watching the Weather Channel, and and then especially about 6 years ago, I actually started getting into storm chasing, and just indulging in all that information on how to chase, and just wanting to really follow that passion, and just really chasing is honestly what I always have loved doing, and I just love weather even in general.
You like really adrenaline stuff?
I do love adrenaline stuff, and I honestly I find being in a situation where tornadoes are, I'd say, probably the best adrenaline rush you can get out of it. Usually I go kind of, you have that adrenaline feeling, especially whenever you're entering a very powerful supercell, even when a tornado's right in front of you. And I do love that adrenaline feeling of chasing.
What was your parents' opinion? How did they react when they knew that you are a storm chaser, or you are getting into the storm chasing in general?
So they were kind of skeptical at first, because storm chasing is very dangerous, especially if you're what they call an amateur chaser, someone who knows very little about it, and they're just going out there without knowing what they're fully doing. They were a bit skeptical at first, but once they saw that I had completed Skywarn training and really wanting to indulge in all that information and learning, they kind of let up a little bit, and really gets to me as just very awesome passion all in one.
Have they ever considered to chase with you?
So the answer to that would be no. So my mom is definitely scared of storms. Like, she does not like them. And I know my dad, he's not really too scared of them, but I know he wouldn't just go chasing. Honestly, I think I'm pretty much a lone ranger in this.
Do you remember the first storm that really hooked you?
Actually, yes, I do. So I did a jiu-jitsu class several years ago, and I remember one time at the gym there was a tornado warning, and everyone was trying to get out of there and take shelter, and all of a sudden the sirens started going off, and for me at that point, I wanted to see what was going on out there, and I wanted to see that storm really take shape. And I just remember going home, watching the news saying there was a tornado warned supercell that was coming towards the Bell County area. There was an event called the West Temple Tornado, and that took place on May 22nd, 2024. And that night, I do remember the tornado had just dropped, like on the other side of kind of a few miles on the other side of the of 317, and that was the one that hit West Adams that night and was later rated as EF2. And then I do also remember my parents' truck. They got, I think it was an 84 or 85 dents from, and keep in mind this is pea-size hail. When you have 100-mile-an-hour plus winds that are throwing pea-size hail, it will become a projectile event.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we also had dents on our house. I remember that night, yard was just full of hail, full of little pellets of hail.
What safety precautions are you taking, or any particular steps towards storm chasing, or when you know you go out there into the field and protect yourself?
I try to keep myself to where if I'm in a situation, I can pull myself out pretty quickly. It's kind of one of those deals where you try to put yourself in the situations that you can, to where you know you can get in and out of it. Because usually, if you're in the wrong situation and you can't pull yourself out of it, you're most likely either gonna end up hurting yourself or end up hurting others.
How do you decide when a chase is worth it and when it's not?
I look at radar scope, and I look at velocity and rotation. I usually also look eye to the sky. If I even feel cool air, usually that means a storm is usually weakening. Has that weakening process, usually the downdraft stage.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's kind of that. Usually you know it's kind of coming to an end. And then usually, or even if I'm chasing and I see that a storm, it's starting to, you can see kind of like a ladder of clouds, usually indicating an updraft. But usually, you kind of have that sense of a storm chaser where you can kind of sense that, like, things that people that aren't storm chasers can't. So you can really sense that, especially.
Have you always had kind of like a sense without satellite models or radar scope?
So yes, I have actually had that sense a lot. Usually if even if I smell rain like miles away, you kind of get that, it's like a cardboard smell.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when it's that humidity's hitting the ground, or usually if I'm just, like I said, if I'm looking up at the sky, usually I can tell if a cumulonimbus is just, without even looking at the radar firsthand. I remember I'll be sitting there looking just come out of my house and I'll look in the sky and I can point out a cumulonimbus right there.
And you see overshooting top, how strong inflow is, and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, the overshooting top and the anvil. As long as I can, like I said, as long as I can keep myself to where I can pull myself out of that situation if I need to, yes, I will chase anything. So,
till it chases you, right?
Yeah.
Was your first real chase different from what you expected?
So, I kind of had most of the expectation, but a little bit of it was different. I'd say what was probably different about it was really the way the atmosphere felt in that situation. But most of it, it kind of matched up to expectations.
Did you get any situation when there was a lot of other chasers and you got stuck in the traffic?
So no, I actually, if anything, I've gotten myself caught in some pretty good sized hail, and to where at that point I had to just, zoom through there to where I had to get myself out of that and kind of just really, really pull myself out of that situation. Hail is not really something I mind too much unless it gets too big. If it gets too big, like baseball size and up, yeah, you're running into some deep territory there, and at that point, it could be bad. It could be even life-threatening if it gets any bigger.
When you look at the radar scope and hail size, can you really trust it?
So what you do, or at least what I do, is I go to what's called the digitally integrated, vertically integrated liquid, and really try to measure out what I can, the best I can, and then not only do I look outside to see if anything's going on, I also look at spotter network reports, imping reports, stuff like that. But there is really no way you can tell 100%. I do agree on that, and that's why I'm trying to, and like I said before, I'm trying to make radar better. That's what my goal is, to where it can actually become a lot more accurate than it is now.
What's the project you work on currently, or you work towards? Your goal that you would like to see yourself in the future?
So I try to see myself working on a goal that I can help enhance warning times even better than what we even have now. I try to make that technology better by gathering data. I know I've launched a few data probes into storms, and I've gathered with a handheld anemometer just your basic stuff, and then I combine it with the software, integrated software. Just try to, I really do try to see myself helping others out with safety-wise, and trying to get the more I guess I call it enhanced safety for others, to where that way people will have faster time to react and to take shelter. I am working towards that though, to where I want to get I want to try to make a homemade launcher to where I can launch probes into there with a pressurized PVC. But I would say it's pretty good.
Do you feel pressure from social media to get closer, like a core of the storm or even tornado?
So honestly, I want to be right up in it. Like that's just me. I want to be right up in it to where I can feel the power, and really feel try a little bit of that pushback from it. And even what a lot of chasers call the bear's cage. Usually baseball size hail, zero visibility, and usually sometimes even a hidden tornado in the back of that. But yeah, usually that's just me. I like to be pretty close to it.
When there is a HP high precipitation storm, so supercell, how you can avoid tornado?
I'd say don't wait for it at the last minute, because by the time you either see it or you hear it coming, it's already too late. Usually if it's a rain wrapped high precipitation supercell, I'd say at that point for anyone that doesn't storm chase to take shelter immediately, although you should take shelter with a tornado warning immediately. I'd say a high precipitation supercell is even more dangerous than a regular tornado warning, because at that point you can't see anything coming.
Regular people, they are just caught middle of the storm. What would you recommend to those people they should do?
So honestly, there's been a lot of not only speculation, but there's been a lot of rumors about that. Do not park under a bridge, because all that's going to do is really channel the winds. I'd say really if you can, try to. this is what I've always heard. Like I've heard this is a pretty good method. One of them. Try to if you absolutely have to get out of your car, lay flat in a ditch to where you're not really channeling the winds under you really, because at that point, if you're still in your vehicle and it's like right on you, you're gonna get thrown. And also there's another method that usually I know people they do kind of pull over. I've seen some that pull over on the side of the road, you know. But I would say one thing, and that is do not park under an overpass, like a bridge, because that's just dangerous.
Would you also recommend to those people have necessary apps in their cell phones?
Absolutely. Now, I don't really trust like news apps a whole bunch because really that's just going off of what they call national radar, and even AccuWeather. I've used that app. I'm not too impressed with it. I do think that a lot of people should have at least some sort of a one-time paid app, kind of like Radar Scope. It can really help you through a lot, and it's actually accurate live radar, and that from local stations around your area.
What would you recommend to someone in your age that would like to become storm chaser?
I'd say follow your dreams. Never give up on them. Always try to be humble. Be willing to learn. Just really put yourself out there and try to learn as much information as you can. And honestly, I can't even tell you the hours that a day for so many years that I spent just learning myself, just self-teaching myself about weather and storm chasing. But never give up on your dreams, because eventually it's gonna be some hard work, but it'll all pay off in the end.
What do you still feel inexperienced about?
So there's some things about, like, what you said, like storm predictions. Like I kind of thought of the Storm Prediction Center. A lot of the times they issue stuff, and then this is just one example, but another thing that I kind of experienced about is like the way the SPC issue stuff. They kind of move it around each update, to where it's never too accurate. I do, however, think that I am very inexperienced with trying to really, I guess I'd call it, accurately predict, like on point, where storms are gonna pop off or take place.
What have storms already taught you about yourself?
Well, I'd say honestly, they have taught me a few things. One of them being, I can actually feel a great adrenaline rush just chasing tornadoes. Two, I'd say if anything, it's taught me to, it's taught myself that, I'm not really afraid of the weather that I thought I was. I think those two main things it's taught myself, or taught about myself.
Would you say it helped you to deal better under pressure in a real life situation?
To an extent, yes. I do think, yes, I do think to a point it has, especially like when you're in that much of a high pressure situation. It really takes place into that one, I guess I call it perspective, to where you're really putting yourself out there in that much of a high profile situation. And I will say to a point, it has kind of helped me with high pressure situations.
Do you have any personal story that stays with you?
So yes, I do. It is. It's called the West Temple tornado. So like I was talking about before a few minutes ago, on May 22nd, 2024, there was a supercell that was, it was a severe weather event day, and there was a supercell that was kind of coming west-east, and really at first when we were looking at it and stuff on radar, really it showed just hail, like it was a big hailer. Really not too much of an updraft, no rotation. And then as it started getting towards the Killeen area, all of a sudden it becomes tornado warning. So then I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, this is starting to intensify really quickly. And then I end up contacting the weather service and contacting a few the local news stations, saying like, hey, we got something that's could be pretty dangerous. It's moving pretty quickly, intensifying rapidly, and as soon as it gets to the Bell County region, after Killeen, it really starts to increase the rotation, and all of a sudden they say a confirmed tornado is on the ground, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not going good. So, and then right above these trees right here, I could see the base of it. It was about a quarter-mile wide. And, just driving through, I remember just riding with my parents at night afterwards, after the aftermath. It was so, there was a car flipped over, there was buildings just completely wiped out, almost the foundation was gone. And there's law enforcement everywhere. It's very tragic. And even when it was coming in, I could feel the inflow temperature getting warmer. And really, it was really, I could see the sky was just blue. That's probably the first time I've ever seen the sky turn that blue. So I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, here we go. And all of a sudden, it just gets really still and eerie. And it starts, really starting to close in on us. All of a sudden, the wind just picks up, and there's dust flying everywhere. I remember debris flying right past my face, and tornado siren started going off. I remember I saw, even right over here, I saw a big power flash, and power went out for a few days. And that tornado was rated EF2, and I think it should have been a little higher, but and then there was a second tornado, because I noticed on the radar scope app, like, okay, there's starting to wrap up again, starting to really tighten up, and that was the EF1 that hit Heidenheimer, so like the very far eastern part of Bell County, and that one did some pretty good damage too. And you really look into it, and then it really sticks in your mind, because like I said, you kind of experience that chaser side, to where it's like half storm chaser, half human being, to where from a storm chaser perspective it's awesome, but from a human being side, you're also feeling that devastation for other people, and it's really tragic. And also, here in the coming season, I'm predicting a few good shots of some tornadoes right here in the Central Texas region as well, with El Nino, and I think we could get some pretty good shots as well.
Have you been part of neighbors' recovery after storm?
So yes, so the neighbors that live right by us, I remember there were trees and just logs that fallen, and I still remember there's leaves everywhere, the lightning was still going at it, and we went over there to help move all these logs out of the road. And I remember one man brought a chainsaw over there to really cut up these logs, and just really helping out our neighbors, and it's just a very tragic situation.
After your experience, what do you want people to understand about storm chasing that videos don't show?
Well, really, if I had to say that, I guess I'd say, really, it's a lot more intense in person, like I said, the West Temple tornado. Yeah, I mean, people can hear the story and they can, but for you being there in person and just wind flying everywhere, just stuff flying everywhere, metal flying, that's when you really get the sense of, okay, this is very dangerous. This is something that videos very rarely show. Depends on what video, but this is getting to a very dangerous level, to where it's more realistic than a video.
Is there anything you would like to add or share with us?
I'd say one thing, and that is, if you're going to storm chase or even be a storm chaser, like I said before, just please, be humble and be willing to learn, because being what some people call an amateur chaser is not worth putting yourself in that much of a dangerous level. It's not really worth that risk of risking your life for it. Just really be willing to make sure you know what you're doing before you put yourself out there.
Yeah, Brady, thank you so much for coming and taking your time.
Thank you so much for having me on.